Woo! What's up, people? Welcome to another episode of The Giants Guys. And of course, we are probably in a state of mourning after a rough game in Philadelphia this past weekend. So we're going to do a little bit of recapping the season, maybe dive into some expectations for next year, what we like, what we don't like with the result of this year. But what you need to know is we are brought to you by Astro Flame. We're hoping that you will support us by supporting them if you're trying to lose weight in this new year of 2023. If you're out there doing CrossFit, if you are out there doing anything that is physical, you need to have the right type of protein. You need this gourmet whey that Astro Flame makes. It's chocolate peanut butter cup. There's Oreo, there's strawberry, vanilla bean. It is fantastic. I guarantee you don't find anything that tastes as good as this. There's no extra chemicals. There's no added sugars. And they have 5 New Jersey stores that will ship anywhere. We're shipping to Hawaii, Florida, California. We're shipping all over the place. So, again, we're brought to you by Astro Flame. Give them a chance. Check them out. I'm pretty sure you will love the product because we do. Let's get the guys in here. They're trickling in. We're going to be introducing Mathias Kiwanuka at 8 o'clock. Let's do a little bit of recap. Chris, how are you?
Hey, Craig. Doing well. How's everybody else doing out there?
We're hungover, my friend. We're hungover. We're feeling a little low probably after what we would call an ass kicking. But you know what? We might not have expected to be here anyway, so we're going to chop this up. Let's get Zane in the room. We haven't seen Zane for a while. Let's bring him in. Zane.
Hey, Zane.
How are you, my friend? Zane's on mute. Let's try to unmute him. You're muted, belt guy. There you are.
Am I, though?
Yes. All right.
Yes. Yeah, I'm good. No complaints, man.
Perfect.
Just like everybody else, in between on satisfaction, still got that bad taste in my mouth, and that's going to be there for a while. So aside from that, glass is always still pretty good. What's up, Steve? Real cold G. Glass is always going to be, full for me, but still, it's going to take a while because of how much I hate Philadelphia. So it's going to be a while for me.
No, I'm right there with you. We do live locally down here. So I see you guys piling in the room. It's going to be a fun day. We're going to chop it up with Mathias Kiwanuka in a little bit. But let's kind of, Chris, I'm going to start off with you. Just talk to me about your overall recap of the year. What did you like? What was promising? What were you surprised by? And then maybe, what you think should be improved with. Look at it from maybe a 10,000-foot view.
Yeah. I was surprised at the defense, although they weren't highly, at the top of the ranks. When you looked at defenses across the league, they hung in there, right? We had this notion that with Wink, blitzing as much as we thought that they would get burned if one of their corners would go down, which Odori did. But I think the defense as a whole hung up there with the lack of inside linebackers, and guys off the street, guys off waiver wires, guys off special practice squads. I think, it was a nice, I don't know, I don't want to say surprise, but I guess it was a surprise that the defense did as well as they did with what they had to work with in the linebacker position and the secondary. And when you go to the offense, I mean, listen, what we had at at receiver, once we lost Tony and we had the trade, and then Wandell goes down, we didn't have a number one. We pick up Hodgins. The sustainability of the team, I think, was a big part of them winning and getting to the playoffs because they were +3 in turnovers. So not turning the ball over, I think, was one of the biggest factors for this team to make the playoffs. And obviously Daniel Jones, I don't think, and Barkley, they don't make the playoffs without both those guys. And we saw, we saw Thibodeau at the end of the year come on like a number one, like we thought he would. So, we got some things to improve on, but all in all, can't be unhappy.
So you're happy with the overall snapshot of the season. What do you see if you had to just pinpoint one glaring hole that needs to be addressed in the offseason? What's that one glaring hole that you think that the coaching staff right now is sitting back saying, guys, we can't go another day without addressing this situation?
Yeah. There's so many positions that are so close to each other. Like you could go with 3 different things, but I will go, the receiver spot, that number one receiver. And we saw that on Sunday against Philadelphia. The Giants weren't able to stretch the field downfield. They didn't have, the way they played with that single high, we didn't have anybody to stretch the field. And although Slayton stretches the field, I don't want to say he can't stretch the field, but we lack that number one receiver to open things up. So you saw when they shut down the running game for the Giants, we really couldn't do much downfield. No explosion downfield. So,
Zane, you came into the season thinking what? Where were you? We were in camp, new coach, new GM. Is Jones the guy? Is Barkley healthy? Where were you when the season started? Where are you now?
I was very hopeful and optimistic. If you remember when we went on the record about the record, I had us winning 10 games. So we were very close to my prediction, very, very close. So as far as that, and again, that was the optimistic, right? That was the ceiling or the floor. I was like, well, it's got to be at least 6 or 7, right? If you're gonna make an improvement, it's got to be at least 6 or 7. So they did what they were supposed to do. So for me, the promising thing is actually the coaching staff. They hit, right? Kafka's a hit to me. I always see a lot of people complaining on Twitter, and my response is always the same. You can't kill the coach for poor player execution. Plenty of times I saw poor player execution. It's not the call, right? So I'm not gonna kill the coaching staff as much. Wink was my favorite pickup, which is why I went to 10. I thought his first year defense was gonna do things, which it did more than enough in my opinion. I think we led the league on third downs, or we're second, in getting off the field on third down. So Wink was my big guy that I was really following, said, he's going to make the difference. So my promising aspect would definitely be the hiring of the coaching staff. I feel like it was nailed.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that when you look at the, the overall 10,000 foot view, the GM, the head coach, and the staff he put together were a home run, right?
Yeah,
you can't, where when Judge maybe came in and brought Colombo, it was a mess, right? So we didn't really have a lot of that. There's a little bit of, rumbling, Zane, about Bobby Johnson because his offensive line didn't do as well as it should. I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, when we don't really know. Again, we had Gates coming back off of surgery. Bredesen, rookie tackle. I don't know in year one if that's
right.
Hey, Bobby
Feliciano is a stopgap. He had moments. They were good moments. Is he some type of long 5-year solution? No, I think he's going to be going on age 31. So he's not a long-term guy anyway. And he was more than adequate. Once again, I know he gets killed, and there were I think down the stretch he played really, really well, to be honest with you. He really picked it up. But again, not a long-term solution. Same thing, Glowinski was very disappointing at right guard. In pass pro, in the run game, he was good. But in pass pro, it was ugly, downright ugly. And Neal just needs work. I'm not out on him at all. I know people are like, you get the whole, oh, look, it's Eric Flowers. No, it isn't. Not from what I'm watching. Not at all.
I love it. No, great analysis. I'll throw my 2 cents in. When I had,
Can I just finish up?
Oh,
on the sorry,
go ahead.
On the position, same thing. I'm going to differ a little bit with Chris. That's one of the two. The other place I'm saying is linebacker. Man, it's ugly. It's terrible. Mm-hmm. You name it. It's bad. Right. I don't ever want to see Jalen Smith out there. Love the guy. I don't want to see him out there. The moment they got Gerard Davis, they inactivated Micah McFadden. That says a lot. That the moment they picked up a guy off of somebody else's practice squad who got cut in week 15, by the way, shows you, number one, how desperate we were for any incremental upgrade. But the fact that you're going to inactivate somebody who played that many snaps that quickly should tell you, how bad that little group is exactly. And again, not a knock, right? But it's a room that needs great improvement. We don't have a guy that can shed and get through and beat blocks and get around and hit the hole and all that. Heck, even Landon Collins they signed him. They didn't get a sniff of him. Like in the important moments in games, they didn't even get a sniff. So I'm not sure. Inside linebacker is really tough. Not just inside, but I would say linebacker, right? Just linebacker in general. I don't want to say inside. Just linebacker in general, I think needs a lot of help.
Yeah, and Zane, I'll throw a name at you. And the Buffalo connection, Tremaine Edmonds. I think he's going to be a major target going into the
I think he will be, but if he's supposed to get what he's supposed to get, I'm out. I think
we'll see what the market calls for, because the market.
I think they're thinking like 5 years, $14 million. I'm not doing that, man. I'm sorry. He's kind of like he came out as a safety, but he's more of a linebacker, right? So I mean, I don't know, $14 million a year. I'd rather go after like a Bobby Okereke, who's a sideline to sideline guy, and I'm more than happy to take him. He's gonna cost you less than $14 million a year, in my opinion. But yeah, that is a name you'll see because of connection. All those rumblings are always going to get put together, right? Oh, he was here, so it wouldn't be the worst name to think about. But again, he's still an upgrade.
Right.
I'll throw my 2 cents in here on both your topics. Coming into the season, new coach, new GM, everything's new. And when everything's new, the curve is really long. So my expectations were low, not because, I didn't believe in the talent. I just knew that everything has to gel. And you're talking about these 90 guys, in camp that have to gel in such a short period of time with a new coach, a new philosophy, a new locker room. So I was like, hey, if they win 6 games, I am, of course, not happy, but it's expected, right? And right away, there was a difference. There was a difference with Jones, there was a Judge, there was a difference with all the coaches, right? But in the past, that change faded as the season went along and things unraveled. Everything kind of gained momentum this year between players liking each other, supporting each other. There's nobody bickering in the locker room. There's nobody, everyone's stepping up. So my expectations were low and they were exceeded. I think that was a tone that was set by the coaching staff. And like, hey, we're going to bring you a great defensive coordinator. We're going to bring you in Patrick Mahomes' right-hand man in Kafka. Like, I think the organization was excited, and there was a lot of young people in the room, got rid of all the old bad blood. And I think there was a really nice nucleus here of guys that wanted to play football. You know what I mean? So I think that was encouraging. I mean, overall, from an offensive standpoint, we basically duct taped it. From the wide receiver position. And those guys did everything they could, everything they were asked to do. Like, this is a game of competition, right? The best players succeed and the best players win with the best scheme. All the puzzle pieces fit together. Those 3 gentlemen that really, if you think about it, it was 3 guys. Hodkins, who comes in late. Richie James, which is trying to do everything he can to support the team and contribute. And Slayton getting rid of all the hiccups and the drops that he did, throughout last year, really stepped up. And there wasn't a real number 1, like Chris said. So I'm very happy with what they turned out. Defensively was kind of a roller coaster for me. We still didn't really have an edge setter. As much as I love, Ward and I love Thibodeau, we still got beat around the edge most of the year. We didn't have a true edge setter. I loved what Leo did, but he got hurt a little bit in the middle of the year. Dexter had an all-world year. We worked with some patchwork on the defensive backs. And of course, McKinney is probably one of my biggest disappointments, especially learning the fact that he almost lost 3 fingers. I'm extremely disappointed in that because it feels immature, it feels irresponsible, and it feels not team first. And I don't care what anybody says. I just know that I'm a captain. I'm calling the defense. I'm looked to be a leader, and that happens. So I was very down on McKinney because of what happened. It was an accident, so I get it. Accidents do happen. I just, your job is to focus in on this. That 1 week definitely changed the algorithm of that defense without him because he's such a great player. 10,000-foot view. This team does need wide receivers and it does need linebackers. It definitely needs a playmaking linebacker. We've done enough patchwork for years, right? I was having this conversation with a friend this week about Blake Martinez. That's something that kind of, I've always had an issue with because the guy had 11 tackles, 12 tackles, and then retires, right? Maybe he was just done with football. Maybe he didn't want to leave New York. I know they took away the C and the dot and all that great stuff, but we haven't had a run stopper, linebacker. I don't want a hybrid linebacker, 230-pound guy. I just want the next Luke Kuechly. And they're out there. These linebackers are out there. The Van Der Esch, they're out there. The Giants have been passing those guys by in the early parts of the draft for late round cheaper guys. And it's hurt us, right? Crowder, McFadden. I like McFadden, but as you pointed out, Zane, the minute they found another body, they demoted him.
Yeah, so, he's not a true inside linebacker, right? He's more of a pass rushing type linebacker. Probably go chase the ball, sniff the ball type scenario, but he's not going to shed, make the play. I mean, I think he did that like once. I think he did like once all season because he's not that big. He's a small guy.
Yeah, he is a little bit on the shorter side. I don't agree that he's a chase the ball guy. I think he could be a downhill two down linebacker. I don't think he's got good technique. He gets washed out in a lot of plays.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't know how to scrape very well. He over pursues and he gets washed out. You can hope that comes with experience next year and a full season. I don't know if he's the guy. I think he's, to your point, Zane, he's a little on the short side, not from a 240-pound size, but at 6'1", I think he loses a lot of leverage on bigger dudes.
You remember, right? He was going to make that interception, but he was 6 foot. Remember what?
Yeah.
He was just a little bit bigger, but yeah, he's about 230. He's not super tiny, but he's not super big, right? He's an odd body build, right? He's like 6'1", 230. It's a very odd size from that
fire
standpoint.
plug, but it gets pushed around.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can. I don't know what he's going to do with that. But again, he was a 5th round pick. But chiming in, we got this guy on the roster who's 6'4", 260, who probably was going to be a starting inside linebacker had he not got hurt in the preseason game. So I hope Darian Beavers is nice and healthy because he was looking nice and good. So he's going to bring a natural upgrade just by hopefully being healthy.
Yeah,
whether he's your guy or not, it still adds another piece of talent to help circumvent the lack of talent, if you will.
Yeah. And keep an eye on Timon Fox, right? He'll be on the outside next year again, and he'll
he's
have another
tiny one that I don't necessarily get just yet. He seems like another small tweener type who's like gets washed a lot.
Well, he could be a situational linebacker. That's somebody in the running game, but you can.
I'm gonna backstep a little bit on Craig's McKinney take, which I'm kind of on, and I'm kind of on the other side too. Kid is 23, and it's a mistake. Obviously, not a good one. If in theory, let's just say it was an ATV tour, and he's just sitting on the back, and you hit a pothole or something, you fall off, you try to grab yourself. Things like that happen. I don't think any intention was recklessness. I think he is a good kid. I'm sure he's going to absolutely learn from it. But I understand Craig's point of view that when you have that you need to take things more seriously. There should be a lot more accountability, and you should think twice before anything. But at the end of the day, I think he'll learn from it, and you can see his impact when he is on the field. Even in the Philly game, he played well, even though mostly 95% of the team did not. He still did play well.
Yeah, they definitely, missed his play. We've missed his play all year.
Absolutely.
It's not a knock on his.
There was a lot of missed games where that 9 could have been 10 or 11. He could have been that difference for a close game.
Yeah, and I'm not knocking his character or his play. I just think in that one moment he made a mistake, but it affected a whole roster full of guys.
Ali put when you were 23 with a wing. When I was 23, I wouldn't even talk about what I was doing at 23.
Yeah, but you weren't also getting paid $4.5 million either.
I was making like $450 an hour, so it was close.
Gotcha. Fair enough.
Just zero decimals.
So, Chris, so you're giving me a little bit of an improvement here. You want to upgrade the wide receiver. Zane's on the train of not one over the other, but simultaneously.
Yeah,
linebackers. Let's talk about when you this past week. Just we don't have too much time before Mathias comes on. So. What did you like about the Eagles game, if anything? What did you did? What struck you about this Eagles game that was different? Because I found it very hard to watch the game because nothing ever actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
Where and listen, the Eagles are a far superior team than the Vikings, right? And we can't compare the two. 12 Pro Bowlers, right? A team that's been built over 3-4 years, but it just felt like. When you're up against the Dragon Slayer, or the Dragon, you better come to try to slay the Dragon. And it felt small. It felt short-sighted. It felt something was missing. Hi, Sarah, how are you? I've even gone on to say that if someone's going to offer you a $20 million a year job, how much time went into preparing, talking about yourself when you have a job that's waiting for you in the Colts or the Texans? You are preparing. There are hours of the day that you are using to prepare to sell yourself as the next head coach. So, Chris, what did you like, if anything, about this Eagles game, and what struck you as unique, different, disappointing?
Well, what I liked was they showed up at the game on time. They were there for kickoff, so that was good. But not much. I mean, you saw Jalen Hurts, who went 16 for 23 for 155 yards, really didn't have to do much in the passing game. And, the Achilles heel for the Giants all season has been that outside run on defense. They cannot stop it. The inside run as well. You saw when Dexter Lawrence got out of the game and you had guys in there like Ryan Anderson, Mondo. These guys were just manhandling the guys up front. So when you talk about, waves of players that the Eagles, rotate, it's just amazing. Lane Johnson with a groin injury, no ill effects. He even looked like he pulled up one time and he might not finish the game. He's still back out there. So you just saw just a better roster, just a better players. But when they took away the Giants running game, the Giants couldn't do anything downfield, and they brought an extra guy in the box, even with a single high safety. The Giants still couldn't do anything downfield. And you saw that all season. They didn't have many explosive plays over 20 yards. I think an explosive play is defined as plays over 20 yards. Giants really don't have too many of them, and that's going to be something they're going to have to correct next year, because their main objective, you could see it, is take away Jones with the running game, take away Barkley, and then go ahead, beat us. And the Giants just couldn't. And the rosters, you saw the difference in the rosters on Saturday.
Zane, you go up and, you're watching Bradbury picking off Jones. You're watching Slay shutting down our average wide receivers. You're watching everything get manhandled. And did you ever say to yourself, hey, we've got nothing to lose here. Why are we being so conservative? It felt like we were literally being conservative. Barkley didn't even get the ball to the third quarter. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. Are we really going to try to beat them passing the ball with Slay and Bradbury? And then we start the third quarter off by handing the ball. I think Barkley got the ball 3 out of 5 times, 4 out of 6 times. He had a couple nice runs. Were you surprised on how lack of effort the game plan had, or hey, we got nothing to lose, let's go for it?
It just looked bad all around. We all more or less expected a loss, right? If we're being realistic, right? You go roster. We all realistically okay, we probably should lose this game. That's realism. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a hopeful optimist side. We won on the road. There's a little bit of confidence.
Yeah, show me something.
Anything can happen. Just try your best. We'll take what you got. We're already winning, no problem. Then you see what happened. You're like, oh, well, that don't make sense. I felt like we got outcoached pretty badly on pretty much every side of the ball. I don't know why Wink was playing zone so much. If he was afraid to play man, then what are you going to do with these man cover corners? Fabian's a man guy. Adori's a man guy. Cordell Flott's a man guy. You have man cover. Go ahead. If you get beat, you get beat. So freaking what? Yeah. So what? Cordell Flott locked down A.J. Brown 2 weeks ago. He saw this many snaps. This many. 0. Didn't even play. Landon Collins probably could have done a little bit better than Jalen Smith. Even if he played a handful of snaps, something, some package, something. Didn't see anything. Okay. Mike Kafka. Love Mike Kafka. On the offensive side, like you said, why was Saquon not touching the ball? Okay, listen, they were stacking 8 in the box and said, all right, Daniel Jones, you beat him. Why was Daniel Jones not running? I saw him do one design run, and he got wrecked, and then they stopped. Instead of doing design runs that were a bootleg, get him out into space. Kind of like, again, same thing they did in Minnesota. The Philadelphia Eagles play a very similar scheme to Minnesota as far as defense goes, with way better players. There's no question. Again, roster stacked, but it's a similar scheme.
Chris, that's a great point that Zane brings up, because I was thinking the same thing. Thank you for making the point, Zane, because I kept saying to myself, where's the rollout to the tight end? Yeah. Where's the, what worked in Minnesota, and we've only got 6 minutes here, Chris. What worked so well that I have not seen the Giants do in years is counters. They were faking inside, coming back outside, coming outside, back to inside. They were running fake reverses, double motions. They were running counter plays inside, crossing route. There was nothing to confuse the defense at all. They went right in the A gap, right in the B gap.
Yep. And one of the things we liked against Minnesota was having Breed, and we talked about this earlier in the season. We liked having Breed and Barkley on the field at the same time. Yep. I thought we'd see more of that in this game as well.
No confusion. They didn't try to confuse the defense at all. Everything was in the B gap, the C gap, straight ahead, guard.
Forget the offense. I'm still on the zone coverage. I don't get it. Why are you playing 10 to 15 yards off of A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and expect to do something? I didn't get that.
Why not let Landon Collins tackle somebody? Because we already know that Jalen Smith he might be the worst tackler I've ever seen.
I think, the part that killed me on the coaching, besides not whether it's execution or game plan, whatever, besides that, I know we got quick time left, so I'll make it very quick. It's 4th and 3, and you want to go for it, and you get a penalty, it's 4th and 8. That was not the time to go for it. That's when you back off because we had nothing going offensively. Gave him a short field and boom, now it's 14-0. Give
And you bring up
a chance against a much better opponent. I have no problem giving Philly all the credit in the world for their roster and how they played. I said it before. You don't win 14 games by accident. It was not accident. They are that good. But, man, we could have competed at least. It looked like JV stuff. It looked ugly. It was not good.
Yeah, there was no surprise at all. Go ahead, Chris.
No, and to jump on the defense part, Landon Collins, 10 snaps, and a lot of those were on special teams. So that was mind-boggling how he didn't bring him in the game to help against the run with a short tackle like Collins. So that was strange. Why we didn't see more of Collins.
They were gashing us right in the B gap all day long, and I kept thinking, where is Collins? Jalen Smith is not the player that you should be counting on to make that tackle. We already know it's going to be a high tackle. It's going to be dragged for 5 yards, or he's going to over pursue it and get washed. And I kept thinking, like, we're not adjusting, right? Then the third quarter comes around and we give Barkley the ball 4 or 5 times. What's he do? He rips off 2-3 first downs.
39-yarder or something like that.
Yeah. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, like, well, maybe that's the key. Let's play smash mouth football. And to come full circle, guys, the number one difference between the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Giants is physicality. The New York Giants are not a physical smash mouth team. You watch, our corners aren't physical. We playing all this cushion like Zane said.
I disagree right there. I wouldn't say they're not physical because this is the most physical I've seen Adoree. In the run game, everything very physical.
I'm not singling out.
Right, no, I'm just genuinely saying I understand. But, you got to play the coverage. Now, why Wink is calling zone is my problem. I'm holding him for that, not the players. Right? I gotta do what you said.
I got it. I'm not talking about Adoree or a single person. I'm talking about when you watch the physicality of the tackling,
sure.
Making a play, making a statement. Like, listen, you get beat, you lay a hammer on a guy. Not hold on to his shoulder pads and get drugged for 10 yards, right?
Does your physicality coincide with actual talent pool? Can we say those go hand in hand, or are those
No, they don't, because you can be a less talented guy and have a shot on somebody instead of hanging on and letting them drag you for 5 yards. Just say, you know what?
That's also talent, right? That's also talent. We saw Tay Crowder get armed out. That's talent.
That's a great point. I'm just making a point that they had nothing left to lose. You might as well lay the hammer on them.
We all agree to that. We were at a point where I was like, hey, man, you might as well just call the zero blitz at this point, see if you get a crack on that guy. You just might as well.
Okay.
Might as well.
Now you're with me. That's what I'm saying. Like when you're down by 3 touchdowns, and then you start laying the hammer on guys.
And then hello, we punt in the fourth quarter. What pass it? What was it? What happened, my guy? Yeah. Why? We're down. There's no chance here, but there's no. You just at that point you play. It's like Madden, right? Just go for it every time. Just go for it.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, right? Isn't there a point in the game where you're like, you know what? I'm gonna punish you for coming across here. Catch that ball. I'm gonna.
Yeah, you thought there'd be some frustration, and I'll give you a guy that started out the season on fire, and I just feel like he's regressed a little bit. Not sure why. Both games, even against the Eagles, Julian Love. I saw him go up high against Goddard and just let him get right past him. Like, I just feel like even the tackling with him has been questionable. I don't know what's going on with Julian Love. He's not the same guy he was.
Easily his worst game. He looked
he's had a few of these.
And I like that guy.
I will say, watching him play all year, 160 tackles and stuff like that, I have a feeling, I can't put my finger on it, but have a feeling it was whatever the assignment they gave him was either too much or out of his comfort zone, or they were asking him to do something he wasn't prepared to do or good to do, because for a fact that he should have made the Pro Bowl. He's a defensive MVP. He made it happen. And all of a sudden he's out of his comfort zone. And, having played safety, I can tell you plenty of times when you're asked to do something as a safety that you're not comfortable with, there's a whole lot of room between you and those receivers, and you start missing tackles.
I think we could have done better on the personnel. I would have honestly liked to see Flop play a little bit more. I think he would have matched up well with like a Devonta. Same frames, same speed. I think it would have been a nice man matchup. But again, what do I know, right? I don't get paid to do this stuff. I'm talking ancillary outside my opinion going forward. I just think there were some questionable personnel decisions. They looked ill-prepared. I mean, it was a bad look, and that's the only reason I'm really upset. Once again, if it was 28-7, but you saw the effort, you wouldn't care. You'd be like, hey, we gave it our best shot, whatever. We can all sit there and say, like, it didn't look right. It didn't look right from a competition standpoint.
Nope. Didn't look right. That's it right there. Don't say another word. That's it right there. It didn't look right from the competition standpoint.
No.
That's it right there. There was something missing in that game plan.
Yeah.
Everyone out there, we thank you guys for piling in the room. I see all you guys. I mean, I see you, Cold, Mark, Allison, Spartan. I see you up out there. I see Tuto. I see Tom. I see Mark B. I see Bones. I see who else is in here. I'm just going through. I see Sarah.
We got Sarah. We got Allie. Allie's in the building.
I see Allie. I see Joe. What's up, Joe? I see Peter. I see Chris. I'm just scrolling through. I see all you guys piling. Mathias Kiwanuka is going to be up next. Thanks for watching another episode of the Giants Guys, brought to you by Astroflave. And of course, I still am giving away some Astroflave tubs for the best question of the day. So if you have a great question, it's out there, and you want to ask it to Mathias, we'll definitely ask him.
I have a question for you. How much time is he already here? Is he backstage?
No, he's not in the green room yet. Go ahead, shoot.
Well, I'm gonna say two things. One, the one shining light, Andrew Thomas continues. Just know that Andrew Thomas continues. Lock him up. That's a vaunted defense. He was not the issue at all.
Okay, give me your second one.
If he's here, I'll wait on it.
Keep going. He's not here yet.
Okay, so my second question to you was on the Barkley thing. He turns down 12. We don't know what his number is. Before the season started, you said to me, and I quote, if he doesn't hit at least 2,000 all-purpose yards, I'm out. He didn't hit it. What you doing?
Okay, great question.
I said if he gave you 18, I probably still would. You said nope, 2,000 or better. That's what you want. Didn't happen.
So, it's a good question. I think the Feliciano Glowinski Neal thing definitely made a difference on the impact that he could have. You're only talking 200 yards. He was at 800. I think he was at 1780 or something like that, all purpose.
I think it was like 1650. Right? Was it? Or am I wrong?
Well, he had
look this up while you talk.
17. Yeah.
He had 13 in that and change rushing, and he had almost 400 receiving. So he's around 17.
His all-purpose was.
But Zane, let me answer your original question.
1650.
1550, but he had 1,300 yards rushing. Didn't he? And
he had 338 receiving.
Well, that would be 16.
Yeah, we said 1650.
Yeah.
1650.
Yeah, he said 1650.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said 15.
1650, 10 total touchdowns, none in the receiving game, all on the ground.
Correct. Barkley get offered 12 and turns it down, which is the Chubb deal, right? So he's turning down the Chubb deal from 2 or 3 years ago. And it's funny how everybody's blowing it up now. The Giants already said that they're going to go back to the table because they felt that they didn't give him the value he deserved. So they're blowing it up today, but that news of him turning that down was 2 days ago. And they're blowing it up now. Like, look at Barkley, look what he's doing. But in hindsight, the Giants already are working on a new deal because because he already the Giants literally said
he should.
Let me send him a note. We are live. So yes, I'm still in on Barkley. If you want 16,
So basically, hold on. I just want to make sure we all know that you're a liar. Because once again, when I said to you, if he gives you 1,800 all purpose, you're out. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You said 2,000 or better. I'm holding you to what you said.
Will it make you feel better? I'm out. Does that make you feel better? I'm out.
Yes. Yes, it does. I want it to be known that Craig does not want Saquon Barkley back because he did not hit 2,000 all purpose.
Yep.
Because that's the level of talent you wanted on this team.
Yeah, but I couldn't control the fact that Neal was a bum, Glowinski was a bum, Feliciano was a bum.
Neal was not a bum. Not a bum.
Bum.
Not in the run game. None of them are bums in the run game at all.
The guy had a horrendous year, and Bellinger had to stay in and block because he couldn't block, so we didn't have a tight end all year. Is he a bum? No. Did he play like a bum? He was not good at any stretch of the year.
Glowinski underperformed in the running game, and he had flashes, but I think we expected better from Glowinski.
So if we actually had a right tackle that could block, a right guard that didn't have 16 tackles that played next to him, and a journeyman center that got out-muscled every play and flexed away a win, for a penalty.
but there's the run game and the pass game. So in that
He was
scenario,
bad.
in the run game, I don't
You
have the
ju-
same
yep.
issues that I have in the pass game with the entire line.
I
I have a different set of issues.
No, this
Regardless.
productivity is productivity. Right? You said 2,000 all-purpose yards.
Yes.
So he couldn't
Well,
get
you
anything.
said it. I'm just reiterating what you said. I didn't say
Yep.
that.
All right, he's here. Yep, and you know, let's get him in here.
Craig hates Saquon.
Zane only comes here like once every 5 weeks, so take it with a grain of salt.
Lots of salt.
Lots of salt. There he is, Mathias. I think you're on.
Hey.
That's a
Can
nice
you hear us?
seat.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Wow, fantastic. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. 2-time Super Bowl champ, Mathias Kiwanuka. Woo! Yes. I've been stalking you forever. I apologize.
Nah, you made it work though. You know what? In this day and age, that's what it takes. Everybody's working remote. You gotta
Very true.
Yeah.
No, very true. I said, man, I don't know how to get a hold of this guy. It's gotta be a way. I'm driving to Florida. I said, I'm driving to Florida. I'm tracking him down. So I appreciate you hanging out with us. Everybody's like super excited. We usually interview like one of your teammates once a month. We have a great time. We have a lot of fun. So let me introduce you to everybody. One is you're born in Indiana, right? You played tight end and linebacker in high school.
Yep.
You won not one, not two, 3 state championships.
It was just the 2 while we were there. We went to the 3rd one, didn't make it.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. You didn't have to tell anybody. Nobody would have known. So my question to you is, as a high school kid, and you know you're getting recruited. Why BC? You're an Indy kid. What? And it's a wonderful school. Wondering like what was the process like as a kid from Indiana? Going up to the city. What was it like, and why BC?
I get asked that question a lot, and so I had to put myself back in that mindset. And it was really, I wasn't necessarily thinking about the NFL being the end goal. I just wanted to get to a major market, play college football on TV, and get a great degree. And when I looked at the other opportunities I had, let me back it up. First of all, I wanted to play basketball. Okay, so we'll start there. Right. And once I looked at I actually had a conversation with one of my high school coaches, and he said, look, these are your options for basketball, and these are your options for football over here. He's like, it's going to make sense. Right. And so when I looked at the offers that I had, basketball wise, it was like Indiana State, Wofford, and then I think Butler came through, but that was before Butler was Butler.
Okay, I was gonna say before they were that good.
Yeah, before all that. So then what I was left with was IU, Indiana State, some of the Big Ten schools. I think I know Purdue never offered. I believe Iowa did, Illinois did, but then BC came through, and that was the best possible option that I had.
Hi.
Say hello.
Hey, how are you?
Hey.
Yeah.
All right, wait. Which one are you? What number? 1 or 2? Child.
1, 2.
This is the 8-year-old here.
He's already
Oh,
huge.
nice.
This is the world's biggest 8-year-old. He'll tell you.
All right, that's cool.
We
What's
were
up, bud?
we were negotiating more screen time before I got on because it's 8 o'clock and it's already bedtime. So I gave him 30 minutes.
The question is, who won? Who won the negotiation?
They did.
The guy who's up on his shoulder currently.
That's awesome.
We didn't really beg for it. We just asked for ones and then he gave in. So it's like not really a bad.
He's giving you a little responsibility, right? He's letting you spread your
Nice.
wings a little bit.
Go get me a napkin or a washcloth. Go.
I love it. That's awesome. He's 8, you said?
He's 8. Yeah, he's a big kid. So.
My son is my son now is 14, and give him a big hug. Yeah, nice.
Why are you so sweaty?
I was doing push-ups.
Because he's working hard. We're
Kids
putting
always
him
put
under
you
the
busy.
gun when we interview him.
Did you do
Kids always putting your business out there, man.
Oh,
Exactly.
yeah,
They're always,
man.
they're always selling you out. Those kids. They're always
Kids
selling
are
you out.
always going to sell you out the first chance they get.
Thank you.
Mathias, is your other one
Yeah,
also
right. You
good?
just throw you right under the bus.
Nah, he's good.
That's awesome.
I know. I mess with him all day long, so it's like I gotta like draw that line. All right, now I really gotta be serious right now. Okay, I know.
No, that's awesome. That's so really cool. Because I always say, like, my son's 14 now, and I'm like, he's just big and smelly now. What happened to that? What happened to that fun, cute kid? All of a sudden now he's a different person.
They tell you that it happens so fast, and you really don't believe it until they get this age. And I'm like, I walk around, I look at like 3-year-olds, and I'm like, oh man, I don't have any of those anymore. Like these are like, you know, they're trying to have grown up conversations with me, but you know.
Yeah, well, that's what this does, right?
Yes.
All right, let me digress for a second.
Mm-hmm.
BC school sack record of 37.5, defensive player of the year. So you get what you were just saying. BC shows up. You know you're going to get a great degree. You're going to play football. You're going to be on TV. Was there another school that was like right there, or when BC stepped up, you were like, "That's it"?
It was. I was waiting for BC to come through. The other component to it is, so I actually went to college with my high school teammate, Jeremy Trueblood.
Okay.
So here's a story for you. So we've known each other since '97 when we got to Cathedral. He's an offensive tackle. I'm a defensive end. So I went up against this guy every day in high school, and then we went to BC together. We went up against each other every day in college.
My goodness.
And then he played for the Bucks for 8 years, and I played for the Giants. We did have one game where we went up against each other, and I didn't get a sack, and it burns me to this day.
Are you still friends?
We're best friends. Like it's been great, and you know, we always talk about like how crazy it is that we actually, you know, made it through all these steps. And I tell him literally, I told him, I was like, I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to play one more year than you do in the league. And he reminds me, I literally did. I got 1 year over him. So that's what he stopped me from getting a sack when we played head to head, but I got 1 year over him in the league. And so that's the big story. So when I was making the decision to go, I'm not gonna lie, that did factor in because he was a bigger time recruit. He could have gone to Notre Dame, Miami, all those other the big schools at the time. And then our running back at the time, Otis Shannon, was at the time he was 14th all-time leading rusher for the nation in high school rushing yards for his career. So he was all time. Yeah, so he was just like all world. And, you know, the three of us were going to try to go to BC. He ended up going to a different school, but Jeremy and I still went. And so it was good that we had each other. We also had a couple other people from our school. And then the late Don Horton, he was an Ohio guy who came to Indiana to recruit us. I think, honestly, he did the best job recruiting. But he also lived up to what he told our parents he was going to do in terms of, you know, getting us to school, making sure we're educated, and finding us jobs in the summertime when we were up there, all that kind of stuff. So I give a lot of credit to, you know, those guys. But it was basically just, you know what, like great school, on TV, get a good education, play with my buddy, hands down.
What I love about what you just said was about them fulfilling what they said that they were going to do. Mm-hmm. So these guys have heard this story a million times. They're going to yawn when I say it, but my daughter got a full ride to play field hockey at Michigan State.
Okay.
So, you know,
congratulations.
Thank you. So she's a freshman right now. She's in the Big Ten. And the reason why and she had all these great opportunities at Lehigh, Wake Forest, all these places, but the coach at Michigan State did everything she said she was going to do. There was nothing gray about it. Mm-hmm. So when we handed her over, there's my prized possession. Here's my baby. I hand her over. It felt like, okay, I trust this woman with my child, and they do everything they say they're going to do. It makes you feel good about leaving them with someone else.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like I'm only at like the grade school, middle school level where they don't need me to walk them into school anymore and all that kind of stuff. So I can only imagine getting to that point. But
well, that was like your parents with you, right? They did everything they said they were going to do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I remember he looked my mom in the eye and told her what he was going to do, and he did it. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so now let's talk about. So you basically dominate at BC. Mm-hmm. I've read this story a couple times, but I got to hear it from you. Mm-hmm. You know, you get drafted. It's the Giants' first round pick, but the Giants traded back for like the first time in like a long time. So if I understand it correctly, are the Giants even on your radar? when the draft comes?
No chance. I that whole draft day experience to me was insane. They invited me. Well, first Tom called me. I think he was like, "Do you want to go to New York?" And I was like, I'm not really feeling it. So I stayed home. I was in Indiana, and I remember it was like 5 hours and like 40 something minutes. I almost remember exactly, but I during the combine I met with the Giants at the combine for like a couple minutes. But I flew to like the Jets flew me in, Kansas City. There was maybe like 3 other teams who like actually flew you in after the combine, and they like bring you in and do all this stuff or whatever. And nowhere on my radar were the Giants. And so draft day comes, and actually, like I remember, I get a phone call from Miami, and Miami's about to pick here pretty soon. I'm looking at the phone. I'm like, oh crap, I think this might be it. I answer the phone. It's my buddy Myron Hunter from BC. He just happened to have a Miami number, so that wasn't it. And then, I slid all the way down to 32nd. And I think right before they got on the thing, I got a phone call, and it was Giant staff. And they said, we said, hold on for Coach Coughlin. And he said, we're going to draft you with our next pick. You excited to be a Giant? And I was like, hell yeah, let's go.
Awesome. What's it like playing for Coughlin? Because your rookie year, and Chris and Zane, we've all talked about this numerous times. That 2006 year was like, what did not happen that year? I mean, you had Shockey was chirping. You had Tiki retire in the middle of the year or announce retirement in the middle of the year. Back page of the newspaper every day. And you're a rookie in New York, like,
and people wanted Eli out, right? It was 2-3. You wanted him out, like
people act like that never happened. I'm like, yo, when I first got to New York, the whole talk was, yo, when you guys going to get rid of Eli? Like, Eli's got to go. Eli's got to get out of here. Like, literally, I couldn't go to a restaurant without somebody stopping me and be like, hey, I'm glad you came. As soon as I get rid of Eli, everything's going to be good. Fast forward 1 year later, same restaurant. Hey, can you get Eli to come in with you? You think you can get him to come in with you? I'm like, hey,
New York. It's like everyone forgets those years from when he was drafted until he won a Super Bowl. But if you remember back those 3-4 years, there were plenty of people literally screaming for his head, right? You had journalists, tabloids, everyone. Like Mathias said, right? People like, when are you getting rid of this guy? You can't win with him. That was weak.
It was only because of the name. That's the only reason why we kept him, because of the name.
Remember, guys, Shockey in the middle of the year, which, again, I loved Shockey. He was fun to watch. But he was like, oh, we're out coached. Tiki's like, I'm retiring at the end of the year. Like that entire, I'm like looking at my notes, like that, and you're a rookie. You must be like, what?
I didn't know.
Going on?
I didn't know what was going on. I was having fun. I was playing some ball. They were moving me from defensive end to linebacker at the end of that year. I didn't, but what I did know is how to work. I knew whose pocket to get in the hip of. I remember watching certain guys who showed up early, like Antonio Pierce. Like the guy always had an answer in the meeting room. Like every time, it didn't matter like what we did the night before or what was going on, like in the pages or tabloids. When we got back to the meeting, he was the first one in there. He had his water. He was hydrated. He had already done his workout, and he was sitting in the meeting room, and he could answer every damn question that the coach was asking. I remember thinking to myself, all right, let me figure out what this guy's doing over here, And then obviously, Strahan came back, and we already had OC. Tuck was already there, so the D line room was already stacked. But then we had Torbor in the linebacker meeting room. Chase Blackburn, I saw you guys had him on here. Another very, very like high football IQ guy on the defensive side. And then, on the back, R.W. McQuarters, Corey Webster, Mad Dog, who's down in Kansas City with Spags. Like, I mean, the amount of football intelligence on that team, like it was something else. And that's why when I'm on the show on 98.7 on Sunday mornings with Anita Marks, and I'm like, I feel like every week I'm like, what's wrong with this team? Like, where are the veterans? You know what I mean? Like every time I walk in the locker room, like there was a veteran at every position, even on the offensive side, right? I remember big Snee, but Snee wasn't that much older than me, but like big Bob Whitfield, right? Like he was a guy. He was a guy who would get up. I remember like I hadn't heard this guy talk like half the year, and then he gets up there and he gives a speech that honestly like it would have fired up anybody. And but he also oh my goodness, Luke Pettigo. There's another one, right? So rookie year, Luke Pettigo pulls me aside and he's like, "Here, look." He opens up a binder and he's got notes on every defensive end in the NFC East, and then like a page of notes on everybody, and then like anybody else that he's played that did well, he like jotted them down, and I was like, all right. So it was like there was a wealth of knowledge, and I think there were limited egos because I felt like we all thought we were about to get out of there, or everybody who was already there thought that they were about to get out of there. So it was a real like, let's button down the hatches and let's just figure this thing out type of mentality. But there was not the sense that, oh, I'm better than this or anything like that. Everybody was just trying to grind and just trying to make it.
Yeah.
Zane, jump in. I know you got some questions.
Well, I mean, you already kind of addressed it a little bit. So what was that like for you now? When you were in college, what position did you mainly play?
I was a defensive end. So I was a defensive end. They dropped me into coverage a few times. I think the Giants, when they were talking about me being a linebacker, they went back to my high school film. So my high school, I was a stand-up defensive end. So I was primarily pass rushing. But I did
stance in high school.
Yeah, I did. They let me go from come on. I was a senior year by that point. I could do what I wanted. And I was like, I'm not like I'm standing up and I'm rushing. But
Love it.
Go ahead. But yeah.
What was that like for you now? You have that high school experience, you have the handful of dropbacks in college. Now, how did that conversation go between handing the dirt versus, we kind of want you to do this? Obviously, you were Swiss Army-ish for us, right? You did it all, really. And I feel like you kind of get lost in the shuffle because we don't remember you as primarily, right? It wasn't primarily this. You did a lot across the D-line and even standing up. What was that like for you now transitioning not only into the pros, but now, not only do I have to switch his position, I got to cover for this guy named OC, who's kind of really good too. So all those different layers, what was that like for you?
It was a damn shit show. It was, if I want to be honest, it was insane. Like the whole time, my head was spinning so much. Like I don't like. Let me give you an example. So Coach Coughlin pulled me in and he asked me. He did at the end of the day let it be my choice. He said, "Hey, listen, we have all these guys at defensive end. We're trying to get you on the field. We have an opportunity for you at linebacker." And me, as a rookie, my arrogant self, I thought there was no position on the field I couldn't play. I'm not joking. If you lined me up and said, "Hey, go cover this wide receiver," as a rookie, I'd have been like, "All right, I'll figure it out." I had no idea. I didn't know what the speed. I didn't know what the speed was like. But so it was my choice going into that second year. But there just wasn't. There's no way to gain that much ground on people who have been playing linebacker their entire life. I played going forward my entire life. So now going backward to me was it was chaotic. But what I did learn is to just study the playbook and understand everybody's position, because once Spags got there, it wasn't just me who was doing that, right? So because I was a first rounder and I got moved, dramatic positions, everybody notices that. But we also had like Jaquan Williams, linebacker, playing safety, and it was a pivotal part in that run that we had that most people don't even talk about. But we had a guy who came in as a linebacker who was back covering a deep third from the line of scrimmage on a regular basis.
Yeah, he could move pretty well.
Yeah, sixth rounder, I believe. He was a late round pick. He was a sixth round guy, but made big plays.
Phenomenal athlete. So when I go back to that time period, I was another one of those guys who was asked to do a whole lot. Rich Soybert on offensive line, with the broken leg, like he was a swing guy who did all the different positions. But I will say, like there was a lot of points of frustration. I think right after the first Super Bowl, I had requested a trade, and I got a call from. Oh yeah.
I
was out. I was out because. All right, let me back up. Let me tell the whole story.
Yeah, you're going too fast for me.
Okay.
How did we get here?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, wait a minute, we're just talking about switching positions. I'm still in 2006.
So we won that Super Bowl the following year, but I started 10 games at outside linebacker, and I was still switching back and forth. So the trade-off was that on third down, I was still going to be allowed to rush, right? So I get third downs to rush. We'll figure out the different formations. That's how we ended up with the NASCAR package and all these different things. But I was still dropping back in coverage on first and second down. Well, week 10 in Detroit, you know what I'm saying?
I remember it well.
Yeah, the ball goes right, and then he cuts back left. We all go right. We all go left, except for OC. OC's still coming right. He gets on my leg, and that was it. I was in the locker room. So I was on IR with Shockey and a couple other guys that year when the team won the Super Bowl. And that was, honestly, that was tough. Year 2, finally getting like my feet wet, finally getting comfortable, standing up and being in coverage, and then boom, that happens, and then the team obviously goes on to win the Super Bowl. So it wasn't necessarily that I was so angry. It was just, hey, listen, like I'm playing out of position is the fastest way to the training room, and so I did ask him. My agent, called around, and I think it was Cleveland that was willing to take, and he was, I got a call from the Giants, and it was like, listen, like, we just don't recommend you going to Cleveland. And hindsight, yeah, they did have my best interests at heart, and then they tried to work with me and get me, in the rush a little bit more and all this and that. But at that point, I think once I decided, okay, this is what I'm doing, I'm staying here. We had a linebacker coach, Bill Sheridan, and what I would do,
which, by the way, I'm going to ask you about in a minute because you played for, and I don't know, Chris, I know you got a question too. Yeah. Hold that story about Sheridan though, because now you're at like 2008. Like
okay.
You're going too fast. You're going too fast for me. I got so many good questions. It took me a year and a half to find you. I can't go that fast. Chris, go ahead. Ask your question.
Moving back to the transition, right? That's number one. Great stories. It's amazing to just give us that insight of what it actually is like. But the second part to that is they go on collectively. Mm-hmm. They win the Super Bowl. You're unfortunately hurt. What does that feel like? You're at a pinnacle, but you didn't get to really put your stamp on it. Mm-hmm. So how much does that? I'm happy for everyone, but I'm also internally like, I'm not.
Oh, it was depressing. I mean, I was walking into the training room like, unshaven and this and that. I think I was young. And so, you get older and you go through ups and downs in life and all that kind of stuff. But that was legitimately the first down that I really experienced. Like in college, I think I missed one game, and it was luckily because we had a bye week when I had the injury to the ankle. Somebody jumped on my ankle. It was a dirty whatever. We were over that. But I only missed one game in my entire college career. I never missed a game in high school. Wow, so I had never been hurt. And I remember in BC going up and down the locker and being like, damn, like I think it was almost like over 60% of the guys had already had a major surgery by the time like they graduated from college. And I was like, I made it out without a major surgery. I was blessed, right? So my first experience missing more than one game came in the NFL. And that was extremely depressing. And that's something that, when I talk to like young kids, like I'm the guy that like most guys want to call, like, hey, my son just tore his whatever. Like, can you talk to him and tell him what he's going to go through and all this and that. And I know I'm going on, but like I even looked at, my kids are young, so I'm focused on them right now. But like, going back into college and being, like counselor, yeah, something like in that, because I've done it all. Like I was, barely got into college, so I was, undersized and all this and that. By the time I got out of college, I was all world, this and that. But then I got hurt. So like all the ups and downs that come like psychological with playing sports, I know all about that. But that was my first introduction. It was tough.
And as you mentioned, Shockey was also hurt with you at that point in time, and I know that kind of spoiled him too because he didn't want to be there anymore. He's like, I just missed all the hard work I've put in, and here's the ride, and I'm not on the wave. That's got to psychologically be hard to overcome.
When the kicker is when you get to the meeting. And they tell you that you're not going to be on the team plane to go down to Arizona with the team. You're going to be on the family plane coming down a couple days after, right? And then
you're like, what?
I got on the plane. As soon as I landed, I said, do you know how many guys in the NFL have children under the age of 5? Like it was just babies everywhere on that plane. I didn't have any kids back then. So I'm sitting there, I got a cocktail. I think we're about to watch movies. I'm getting touched on my head. I was like, who, like, it was.
Yeah, you're like, wait a minute, this isn't the NFL that I know.
So I But then, that kind of spurred me. So from that point on, I swear, I was like, we got to get back. I got to experience this. I don't care, what I got to do, but I have to go back, and I gotta see what this is all like.
I got good news for you. The future got better.
Yeah.
Personally, the future got much better. I'm sure you were able to come to terms after that one.
Yeah. But I think about the guys who
jump in. I know you got some questions.
No, Mathias, just a question. It was a broken fibula ankle, right? So
Same. Me, D Ward, Derek Ward, myself, and Jeremy Shockey all had the same ankle injury, same fibula injury. Yep.
So two-part question. Now the NFL has the short-term IR. Looking back to 2007 when this happened, could there have been a possibility you may have been ready for the Super Bowl or the playoffs in January when that injury happened in November against Detroit? Could a short-term 6 to 8 weeks possibly brought you back?
It's possible. So there's a couple of things. So I think what Shockey did was an experimental thing. Instead of putting the screws in, he had like some sort of a plastic, which is supposed to help with the healing process, so they could remove the plastic and your bone would heal faster. And then you could have done like the PRP, which was just getting started, and a whole bunch of other things. So I know guys who had similar injuries who came back pretty quick. With mine, I opted for the hardware, the screws, the whole nine. And if there was a short-term IR, then maybe we would have explored something different. But I wasn't even considering it. So not sure.
Yeah, interesting. I'm surprised the NFL took this long to actually, put in that short-term IR, because so many seasons were ended back then with guys that probably could have came back. But, if I could just backtrack real quick, when you look back to that 2006 season, your rookie year, you had like 4 sacks, I think, which was, tops amongst rookies when you compare it against Strahan and Ossie and those guys, which is awesome. But when you go back to that Panthers game, it's eerily similar to this past weekend's Eagle game. The Giants pretty much got manhandled that game against the Panthers in that wild card game. So what was your feeling after the season, packing up the next day in the locker room? Did you in a million years envision this team? And I know there were a lot of key additions made in the offseason, one of which I think was Antonio Pierce, right, coming in 2007. Did you ever think, wow, a year from now, you guys would have been in the Super Bowl after being removed from that type of game in the playoffs?
No, I don't think that. It's hard to remember that the end of that first year, honestly, but I don't think that I was worried or concerned. I was very, very young and very green, and I thought, I could play for 20 years, and really just trying to figure it all out. Trying to think of what I did that first offset. I know I went back to Indiana, and then I probably came back to Jersey, started training, relatively early and that kind of thing. But no, I wasn't delusional. I didn't think, we got all the pieces. I know exactly what we need to do. Let's go. We're winning a Super Bowl. I was really just trying, let's just get everything headed in the right damn direction. You know what I mean? It was just, there were so many different components, and there's so many different, voices and things that were around that first season was kind of a blur.
No, that 2006 season was like I said, just everything was going on at one time.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you about what you mentioned before. You were getting into the Bill Sheraton stuff, and I stopped you for a minute because, you played for 4 different defensive coordinators.
Yep.
4 guys with 4 different styles, pretty much.
Yep. So
you came in with Lewis,
Spags,
Sheridan for that 1 year, which was the linebacker coach who got promoted, and then Perry Fuel.
Yep.
So my question is A, what guy did you connect with the most? What guy did you like? Like, hey, he's got my best interest at hand. I love this philosophy. I love this style of defense. And I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but what guy, because Sheridan didn't seem to fit the role for whatever reason. I'm sure he was a great guy. What guy did you like the best? Was there one specific defensive coordinator that just clicked for you?
Yeah, I think with Perry, I wasn't with him long enough to really say like, okay, this is, and I was too young. I don't really know like, okay, this was a good or this was bad. I was just trying to like figure it all out, right? Like I'm literally just trying to figure out like how to get my legs back. First year in training camp, and Snee, I remember pulled me aside in training camp, was like, come get in the cold tub, like in between practices. And after that, I always got in the cold tub after that. But so Perry, Spags, I would say, was probably the best coordinator that I had during that time period. I think it's fair. I could say that, right? Like, he was very fair. He was very honest. He knew his stuff. And a couple things I always point to is that I remember one time specifically we came back, we're watching the game film. I can't remember if we won or lost, but whatever game it was an important game. He puts on the film. He's like, hey, look, guys, this is a bad call by me right here, right? But watch your veteran corner, Corey Webster, who understands what the defense is calling for. Make this right? You know what I mean? So you understand, like, where you go, you're playing above the X's and O's. It's like, oh, crap, this is a call, but I know he's not going to get that guy, so I'm going to go get him. It was one of those things. And I remember sitting there like, this is the first time I've heard a coach be honest about making a bad call. Like, we all knew it was a bad call, but I've been sitting in this chair for years.
Yeah, you're like, this guy's a keeper.
Yeah, I was like, okay, so there was something to it. And then I think from there, that changed my mindset. But I guess a lot of guys had already bought in, and it was. But the other thing is, like, his stuff works. You see him; he's still in the league now. Like, maybe he didn't work out as a head coach, but like his game plan works. You know, to the point where I had guys from Kansas City call me and ask me, like, is his defense that complicated a couple years ago? And I was like, no, they can learn it. Just give them time.
Yeah, and that's it, right, Mathias? I mean, the thing with Spags is maybe in the beginning of the season, you know, when he takes over, it takes a little time. And then once guys get it, they get it. And it just takes a little time for that defense to kind of click.
Yeah, because in the league, a lot of guys come in and they're used to, like, you know, I got this box, this square right here with the X in it, that's me. And I do whatever this little guy here does. But what Spags wants you to do is, like, understand what the defense is trying to do. Don't just look at your job. If you can understand what the whole job of the front, the middle, and the guys behind you is, like, if you know, okay, their backs are turned, this is going to be this and that, or, you know, we got double stunts coming up in the D line, like, there's not going to be an edge to this defense. If you can get to the point where you understand what the concept of the defense is, then you can play for Spags, right? So he needs you not to just be, all right, I'm going out here, I'm the right defensive end, I'm going to, you know, you need to be able to know, okay, if I'm the right defensive end and everything slides down and that guy's sliding down away from me, I need to push this gap down and somebody else is going to fill off my butt, even if it's not called that way. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So with Spags, I learned a lot about just defense and just like how defenses are structured, what the offense is trying to do for you. I get to the Bill Sheridan part. Bill Sheridan, you know, he was a guy who tapped me on the shoulder and was just like, and to be honest with you, it was a point where I want to say maybe I think my daughter was born, not blaming the kids, whatever, but like I had a lot of stuff going on, personal life, right? But I think he tapped me on the shoulder at one point. Jim Herman was the linebacker coach at that time. And so the two of them were like, hey, listen, like, I know you're in, this is a crazy schedule. I would go into the D-line meeting room on Wednesdays and Thursdays, right? No, I'll go in the linebacker meeting room Wednesdays and Thursdays. And on Fridays, I'll go into the D-line meeting room and try to get all the stuff that I'd missed during the week from the D-lineman, because on third down, I'm still a pass rusher. But on first and second down, when we do install on Wednesdays and Thursdays, I'm a linebacker.
Okay.
So on top of that, what I would do is Wednesdays and Thursdays, after everybody went home, I would run home, you know, eat with my family, see my daughter. She was the only one who was born at the time, whatever. And then Herm, the linebacker coach, would call me when they got done with the install, and I would go back. I lived in Hoboken. I would go back to the stadium, pick up the sheets for the following day, go home and study those as a linebacker. That way, if I wanted to, I could go back and forth between the two meeting rooms. So if a D-line coach calls, it's like, hey, come look at this, you know, I could watch it and then go back. But I do remember never quite feeling as though I had enough time to process all the checks and calls as a linebacker, because now you're talking about Sam switching to Will if the formation changes, and if we go to nickel, nope, we're going to keep the same personnel on the field. So you, the outside linebacker, you need to know everything that the nickel's going to do in these situations also. And I was just like, so I was always swimming in the linebacker meeting room, but as soon as I got back to the D-line, I was like, so y'all have no idea what they're doing over there. We're over here throwing and stuff, right?
The last place you want to be is in that room over there.
I used to sit in the linebacker room like, man, this is bullshit. Like, we don't take notes over there.
Oh my God, that's a scream. It's like, whatever you do, you do not want to go in that linebacker room if you don't want to be confused. Great story. And so Sharon is tapping you on the shoulder, and what's he want?
So Sheridan was going to sit down. And he did. He sat down with me and he walked me through like everything. We would stay in there until late at night sometimes, and that's when I started saying, okay, I'll go home, I'll get dinner, and I'll come back and I'll get the sheets. But he slowed it down for me and allowed me to learn it at my pace. You know what I'm saying?
And then you had Lewis too, though, right? Because
Yeah,
Bill only lasted for a year.
Yeah. Oh wait, well, Tim Lewis was first, right?
Yeah, because like it was
Yeah.
Lewis.
It was Tim first. Yeah.
Then you had Sheridan, Spags,
Yeah.
and then Perry was at the end.
And then Perry, yeah. So Tim is the one who I didn't spend that much time with.
Correct.
And then I went through. I think I learned the most between Spags and
Perry.
And Perry right there.
Because Fuel one was with you for that 2011 Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
No, that's pretty cool. I mean, especially when you break it down, like how much information you had to process between two different rooms, all those different jobs, all those different calls. Oh yeah, by the way, I got a family, I got a new daughter, I got to go over, I got to do my dad job over here. Like you're wearing a lot of hats, man. A lot of hats.
Yeah.
I don't know how you did that, man. That's insane.
Go ahead, Zane. You can jump in.
No, I just think that's crazy. I've got kids. You know what that life is like, right? When you have kids, you have to balance and everything.
Yeah.
Even for the life of an athlete, that's a lot. When athletes say the grind, that's what they mean of the grind. It's not just being in the classroom, or it's literally they're managing their entire lifestyles.
Zane,
that is.
Zane, did you ever hear Strahan tell the story where he's like, when he was sitting on the beach with Eddie Murphy's ex-wife, and he was like, "I'm not going back." And they asked him, "Why? I thought you loved the game." He's like, "I love the game. It's the grind of everything else. It's meeting room to the field in practice, back to the meeting room, out to the field in practice, back to the meeting room, out to practice." They would go in and out of the facility 5-6 times a day.
Oh yeah.
And his book, literally, that's where I got the story from, when he breaks it down and he's having this conversation with himself. He's like, I got this great looking woman. I'm on the beach in LA, and they want me to go do what all day long?
Wasn't that also the off season of 2007 where we don't know if he's coming back?
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah,
that was
right before.
Yeah, that was that whole thing where he says it later. I'm pretty sure. I don't want to misquote him, but he says it later. Is part of that holdout was, I just didn't want to come to practice. I'm a veteran. I'm tired. I know what I'm doing. I'll be there when the season starts. I don't want to be here. Right. I don't want the grind. I'm good on this. I'm good enough. I'm good on this. And that was even part of the holdout was, I just don't know if I want to do this in this.
Yeah, and the fact that he was with Eddie Murphy's ex-wife, she was pretty good looking too. So I'm sure he was having a good time where he was. So
and then, and again, we all assume from the outside, and Mathias could tell us, Coughlin seems very structured, regimented. I don't think he'd be like, well, for you, I'll make the exception. No, man, you're not special, right? Everyone is just everyone.
Everybody
2007, Mathias, isn't that's when he got a little softer, gentler, and kindler, wasn't it?
He started. I think I saw a lot of different transitions in him, but yeah, he definitely started. He would start like bringing music. I think he brought the music one day, and then we didn't react the right way, and he took it away, and then he brought it back again. But like, he definitely brought in more people around the building who could communicate with the players effectively, if that makes sense, right? Like, you got to understand, right? Like, if you're Tom Coughlin and you're trying to coach a completely separate generation who grew up like in a different era and like different time mindset or whatever, like the communication barrier is there, and I think honestly, that holds a lot of players back. Like, they don't understand, what the coaches are trying to ask them, because it's almost like they're speaking two different languages. I remember sitting in the back in the meeting room and people asking me like, what did he say? What did he say? And it's like, so I think that's part of having veteran players in the locker room, right? Like, they can help translate and get the information to the younger guys. All
right. Question. Mm-hmm. Well, you guys have, I know you guys have some in-season questions, right? You guys are, I'm going to go on to, that 2011 stuff. Cause that's where, I mean, you contributed because you missed the first Super Bowl, right? Mm-hmm. So like, that what's the difference between that 2007 team and that 2011 team? Because they feel like they have totally two different identities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the 2007 team was just like, that was the epitome of like, it's us against the world, right? Like no one believes in us. Like if we don't win now, like we're all out of here type of situation. I remember, I think it was after my first year, like all the coaches lined up and were like high-fiving, like this was it. Like they didn't think, the coaching staff didn't think that they were coming back after my rookie year. I thought that was normal. I found out later, like, no, they thought they were getting fired. And I had one coach, I'm not going to say his name. He literally pulled me aside and was like, hey, I know you just came from BC, you don't really know me that much. I'm in the other side, but I might need you to put in a good word for me come later on. He's still coaching in the league right now. Okay. Like, but he thought he's an offensive coach. He thought he was done.
And Mathias, he owes you a phone call now.
Yeah.
Put that in your back pocket.
Yeah. Right. But no, so that team was, us against the world. But then remember the year after we won that Super Bowl, didn't we? How many? We had like 10 wins or something like that.
Yeah, 2008.
Yeah, so we came back, and now we've had we had a Super Bowl win, we've had regular season success, and now we're in New York. So like I'm talking, doors are wide open. Like anywhere you want to go, like anything you want to do. I mean, like we'll send it was a different level and a different atmosphere. So now you have personalities, and you have egos, and you have like all these different things that you have to try to, put the genie back in the bottle, per se. So by the time we got to the 2011 team, we had already, come from nothing. We had made it, and then we're back down, and now we're trying to get back up. We had enough guys left from that first team who remembered the process and what we did in order to get there the first time. And then we had a good mix of like the Antro Rolls and the other guys who came over who were so hungry. They're like, I came here to win a championship. Like, we're not going out like this, right? So it was the perfect mix of like the old guys who had the rings on and this and that, and the veteran guys who were our age, but they were coming like, oh, I want one of those. Those were all the speeches that were given through the playoffs. So I think that second team, it was like, they got the guys in there that we needed just in time to catch that spark and keep it going. I
saw this. It's a highlight, a tuck in a defensive pregame speech with the boys, and he's like, I'm trying to think. He's like, Roll, you got a ring? No, you don't got a ring. I got a ring. He's like, and he's going around, who was
he says to everybody, you don't know what that feels like.
He's like, you
don't know what it feels like.
And he goes around, he's like, you don't got a ring. Every guy, he asked the same question, and every one of them was like ready to just tear it open and get after it, because like you mentioned, they came there for that, and they were like, hey, look, Eli did it once. He can do it again. We still had OC, we still had Kiwi, we still had Tuck's good leadership, AP. I mean, there was a lot of guys still there, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I know, Chris, I saw the notes, Chris. You had a really good question I want you to ask, because it's about the disc. Because I'm really super curious on that, figuring, because I had one, so I kind of excited to hear what he says.
Yeah, and I don't want to keep bringing up injuries.
Oh, no, we're good.
Yeah, but the herniated disc, Mathias. I mean, obviously that's serious stuff. You see guys' careers end, and obviously you came back and played. Obviously, there had to be a moment where you thought, "Geez, I hope this isn't going to be something that's going to linger forever, and I'm going to need surgery." I don't even remember. Did you have to have surgery for the bulging disc or the herniated disc, or is that something that you worked through?
So I did. I eventually had the surgery, but I didn't do it until after I retired. I actually just did it like during COVID. I was running out of time. But so what happened there was, I was in the game. I think it was Carolina or something. It was a home game, and boom, I hit, and like everything just went numb and everything like that. So I tell them about it. We go get the MRIs. It wasn't just a herniated disc. It was multiple discs, and there was spinal stenosis, and it was degeneration inside, all that stuff or whatever. So there are 3 levels, C3 to 6, were all compromised. And what I did that year was, he said, the Giants were great. The Giants medical staff, can't say enough about them. Lee Wise, Ronnie Barnes, the whole lot of them. They're different than the rest of the league in the sense that they don't report to the coach. They are, VPs on that level. They really, I believe that sets them apart. They really have our best interest. Nobody can tell them, especially Ronnie, like what to do. So they flew me to Chicago. I think the doctor who did Peyton surgery was there. They flew me to LA, Carolina, and one other place. And then I ended up back in New York. Frank Camisa Jr. is the surgeon, the orthopedic surgeon there, who he did an injection. So what I did that year was I just had injections, and I had to put me on the little table, and they inject your neck with the dye and make sure it gets to the right place. And I waited. They told me you're done for the year, and we'll have to reevaluate. We don't know if you're ever going to play again. And all those doctors that I saw, literally one by one, were just like, "Hey, listen, I think you need to find another career."
Wow.
So I went to player personnel, and they linked me up with some internships. And I was working for a company called MCAM I was interning for a company called MCAM in Virginia, and I found myself in Papua New Guinea, embedded with a local group, and we set up a business model for them to have a sustainable business, and that company MCAM, they still exist now. They do that all around the world, and they continue to go. So that year was probably some of the biggest growth that I had as an individual, and actually
that's fascinating.
Being outside of football. Yeah, so it was a really special time. But I think having that injury in my second year prepared me for this injury. So this time when I went through it, there wasn't the same depression. There wasn't the same issues or anything like that. I was like, okay, you know what? I've been here before. I've already looked at the end. I know what it's going to look like. I just got to pick myself up and figure it out. So I did come back and I played. They allowed me to play. And if you want to see something funny, watch I think definitely that next year that I came back, and maybe those next two years, all my celebrations, instead of swinging my arm, they all went to this. That was because most of the time after I hit, my whole body would lock up. I remember AP was like, he's like, dude, what's all this? I was like, man, that's all I had. When I hit somebody, the sting would go all the way down through, and it was, when I say it was a beast, I mean, I was in the bed at night. I had the traction machine that would hold my neck and keep it apart, because if I laid down in the wrong way, I would wake up and everything would be numb from here down, not my waist, but my arms and stuff would just be numb. And my ex-wife would have to sit me up in the bed and wait till my arms came back, from being numb and stuff like that. And so those last, everything after that injury, I had the big collar on and stuff like that, but I was still the big linebacker, right? So they still wanted to throw me in there. They take on the fullbacks in the hole, and every time I hit one, I was just like, this might be it. Wow, But I just, hindsight's 2020, age and maturity and all this and that, but the stuff that I did back then, I mean, it was insane.
Yeah, but obviously your love for the game, you just didn't want to give that up. I mean, you still had a passion. Yeah. Obviously. So once a giant, always a giant. Thank you.
I think the year after, I think he had his best year statistically after that next year. You had 85 tackles or something.
Yeah.
When you're confronted with the end, the real end, this is not like everybody says, yeah, it's going to end one day. When you're sitting in the hospital and multiple doctors from all over the country tell you, son, you need to find a new profession. That shit is real. And so when I finally got the word that I could come back and play, I mean, nothing was going to stop me from putting my best foot forward. I was thanking God over and over, just for having the opportunity, feeling bad that I took it for granted at some points, and I just wanted to play ball, man. At that point, just happy.
I do want to tell you this because, I don't know when the next time we'll talk. I hope you'll come back. But a buddy of mine lives in New England, called me and said, hey, the Giants are playing up here. Why don't you come up to play and watch Giants play the Pats? I go up there. He sat right next to Robert Kraft, right? The two sons sat right next to him, and the dad sat in the booth behind him. And I got to ask him, I said, well, why do you sit out here and not in the booth with your dad? You're like, you don't want to sit in the booth with my dad. They're like, it's all he does is scream the whole time up there. So we sit down here. That was the game where Jake Ballard made the catch in the end zone.
Yeah.
You had the best game ever. I was like, Kiwi's going off. Nobody's stopping him. I always remember that. I'm trying to, was it 2010? 2000? I'm trying to think what. I know it was a late October, early November game.
It was
11. The Super Bowl season. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
What a great game you had that game, man.
I got a picture. I picked him. I picked Brady up. I got
right.
That's where I was going. I was saying, like, and then on top of it, you had like 12, 13 tackles. And on top of it, I'm like, that dude just picked it off.
Yeah.
Look at that. Because, like, I didn't know if you were playing DN, linebacker. You were playing both. Next thing you know, you're picking it off, run it the other way. And I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, that was such a cool year for you because, you know, we missed watching you play the year before. So you coming back like that was, and like Chris just said, the love of the game, man. If you're faced with the end, you might as well put it all out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you would have fit perfectly in a wink defense.
Yeah, I know.
Spots. You would have fit perfectly.
All right, well, that leads me to the new team. I've seen a couple of interviews and the work you're doing. You're definitely following the team, and I know these guys have got a couple questions too. My question is and a couple of guys in the chat. We've got a ton of people asking questions, but I'm gonna bring this one up because I've been talking about it for a couple of days. You know, the Giants have been losing to the Eagles now for almost a decade, right? And what I noticed on the game, and we talked about it earlier in the show before you came on, is the physicality. Like I think some of the Giants defense misses that physicality. We're used to the Tucks, the Kiwis, the Strahans, the Keith Hamiltons, the Antonio Pierces, like, you know, the Rolls, the Phillips, and there isn't. It's a different game. I get it. It's a different game than it is now. And Mark was asking about. It looks like the Giants got out physical, then essentially couldn't respond. So I was going to ask you what your thoughts are on Azeez Ojulari and Tibbs, Tavon, because they seem like really dynamic players, exciting to watch, but they were a little bit. The edge wasn't really set very well, you know, on Sunday. And I was wondering just overall what your thought is on Wink and some of these really cool players that the Giants have now.
They're young, right? So when I watched Kayvon in that game, what I thought was he doesn't quite understand that he is the edge of the defense. He needs to be here to make sure, right? And I'm assuming that was his job, because one of the other things that I try not to do is assume that I know what a guy is supposed to do, because I used to get burned all the time, like, oh, this guy's running right past. I'm like, that's not my guy. It's supposed to look like that's my guy, but it's really, you know what? Forget it.
Yeah. You don't know their assignments. I get it.
Yeah, so I try, but when you can kind of look at the defense and look and say, hey, listen, like, I don't know what your assignment is, but I know you're not supposed to be sitting in the linebacker's lap. You know what I mean? So, so when I watch them, they just need a little bit more time. I think with Azeez, like, I watched him last year and I was really excited for him coming into this year.
Yeah.
He was hurt, you know, for the majority of the time, so we never really got to see him. And when you take a young guy who's hurt and then you try to get him ready for that playoff time, they don't really understand what goes into that, right? It takes a couple of years to really understand what playoff football is all about. But I think they have the future is bright because they have the middle. So you have the pieces in the middle. You have, you know, huge guys in the middle who can push the pocket, who can stop the run. You just need the guys on the end, and then, you know, there's some other pieces that components that need to be there. But the one thing I will say, you can't have a good defensive line without a good offensive line. You know, iron sharpens iron. When you look at Philadelphia and you look at the way that they were able to manhandle people on one side of the ball, it's very much the same on the other side of the ball. And that's because when you go up into practice every day and you know for facts that Chris Snee is coming after you, and, you know, and you gotta strap it up, like, you get better. So
Kareem McKenzie's coming to toss you around.
Yeah, the PhD now. Yeah. So we played with, you know, all pro offensive linemen on a regular basis. So when I got there, I just thought this is the NFL, you know. So when we got to the game, it was like significantly easier than it was in practice. And I'm not even joking. Like, I had a better time most games than I did in, like, you know, 9-on-7 or whatever it was during practice. And so I think once they get that offensive line solidified and they bring some veterans, or they figure out a way to get them playing to that higher level, then you'll see both sides kind of even out.
Yeah, I remember when we had Carl Banks on, he said, the only reason I was who I was is because I had to go against Mark Bavaro every damn day.
Every day.
And he said the tight end coach would come up to him and he'd go, watch this. Hey, Mark, I think Banks has got your number tonight. Oh, that's right. He had your number last night, too. And Bavaro would get all fired up. And next thing you know, they were clashing. And again, iron sharpen irons. You're going against one of the best on either side of the ball. It makes you better. And I think both these guys will agree. We were really high on Aziz because, I've never seen a guy that big with that kind of bend.
Yeah.
I mean, his ability to bend was just off the charts. And then, a lot of soft tissue injuries this year, nagging him kind of held him back. And Tibbs came on really strong. Like, the future seems bright. And I think, they'll coach him up and they'll get better. I was just wondering on what you saw.
Yeah, the same thing. I saw the flashes of brilliance here and there. I saw that they got exhausted by being left out there on the field for too long a lot of times. And then I just saw like youthful mistakes, same mistakes that I would have made, in my first, second year, whatnot. So I don't, there's no reason to panic in terms of the defensive line. I think they've got it correct. You can always get better by adding some veterans. As I said, you saw Philly brought Linval and Dominican Sue in later on in the year. I played with Linval. He was in New York with us, right? So those are the things like when you see a team doing that. When I see a team doing that, I'm like, okay, they get it, right? So there are coaches on the staff who are like, no, listen, I can look at these players and tell like they're not doing the non-football things the right way. I need to get a guy in here that's going to show them how to do it. And how do you do that? That's the guys who stay around. If you can stay around the league for 10 plus years, you figured something out, and you have something to offer to these young guys. So I think that's one of the big components that's missing.
Go ahead, Zane, jump in.
Yeah, I'm just going to follow up. I'm assuming you watched the Philly game, unfortunately, like a lot of us did.
Yeah.
So when you watch a game like that and you see what looks like lack of effort, what looks like, ill-prepared, what just looks bad all around, because that's the optics. If you look at the game, it just looked bad all around. How do you, as a player, kind of decipher that to a layman's audience like ourselves? Well, obviously, we know guys are trying, but when it looks like that, how do you kind of explain that from the player's perspective?
There's really no explaining it. I'll be honest with you. I've been a part of some games like that, and I'll be honest with you. When I got out, the only thing I wanted to do was line up again and play the next week. But when you go out in a playoff game like that, you have a whole year for that thing to marinate in people's minds. So there's no explanation for it. I'm in a group chat, like all the D linemen, like nobody has an explanation for it. They just you got to call it what it is, right? They got manhandled up front. They didn't have an answer for it. They looked oftentimes confused as to what their responsibilities were. But at the same time, they had a tremendous season when people had very, very low expectations of them. They got as far as they did. They played a tremendous game the week before. So I don't think it's all necessarily that they couldn't get it done. It's just that you don't understand the grind of the season when you're young. And you don't understand how dramatic it picks up in the playoffs until you get there and you see it for yourself. So I think they left everything out there on the field the week before. Maybe they didn't prepare as well. Maybe they just didn't have as much time, or whatever it was. But I think if they can bring this core group of guys back and they can have this experience, they can learn from it and move forward. But that just has to be. You just got to put that in the box. You got to put it in the past. You got to move on from it, because that was not fun to watch at all.
Yeah,
no, there was definitely something missing. Can't quite put my finger on it, but whether it was the intensity or, like I said, maybe there was a little bit of, like, honestly, as Zane just said, felt like, when I watched them against Minnesota, and I know that Philadelphia is a far better team than Minnesota, 12 Pro Bowlers, that team has been together for 3 years. Before you came on, I said, my overarching opinion of the game is, you're going up against the Dragon, right? So you better pull out all the stops. Like, I don't care what it is. And in Minnesota, there was a lot of B and C gap. There were a lot of counters. They were rolling out. They were using the seam. I mean, a couple times they had two guys in motion, like stopgap motion. Bellinger comes in, James goes out. Then they're running, counters, and I'm like, where was throw something new at him. It looked very, very basic, which surprised me because, Kafka's a super smart guy being around Mahomes all these years. I thought they would say, you know what? Let's just throw everything at them. And I didn't see that. I think we both, right, Chris? You agree? It looked flat. It didn't look like dynamic. You're watching Daniel Jones do a Statue of Liberty play 2 weeks ago, right?
Feeling it, right?
And Zane's he's like, dude, Breida and Barkley on the field at the same time. Like, it felt more like a cohesive game plan. We're beating Minnesota and we're bringing it all. Against the Eagles, it just felt out of sync. I don't know. That just may be me.
Sometimes as a player, and I don't know for facts, I'm not saying I'm not reporting anything live, but like sometimes as a player, when you sense the lack of confidence from the coaching staff, and what I mean by that is when you've had like a playbook this thick every week, and then you get to a game and it's like this thick, and they're not sure what they're going to install or what they're going to put in, it's paralysis by analysis. Like you're swimming in information. They give you too many things to key on, too many if-thens and this and that. And sometimes, I got to remind people, one of the best things that we did was we all learned how to play cover 2. Like just learn a basic coverage and be able to stop the front up front. So you got 4 down that can rush the passer and stop the run, and then just get a basic defense. And anytime we had a question, hey, check out. Just go to cover 2. If more than one person doesn't understand what this is,
that's fantastic.
That is smart.
That is,
just have a base defense ready if anyone's confused if there's an issue.
Yep. We don't like it. We're tapping out. Go back to cover 2.
Yeah.
That's fantastic, because we literally, before you came on, were saying how Julian Love had his worst game of the year, and I said, that guy's got 160 tackles this year. That guy was fantastic. So they must have either asked him to do something that he couldn't do, or they put him in a position that wasn't beneficial to him, because he hasn't missed a step all year. In this specific game, right, Chris? We talked about it. Yeah. He looked out of sync, right?
Yeah, totally. Mathias, if I could, last one for me. If I can throw 3 position groups at you: wide receiver group, linebacker group, interior line, guard, center. If you had to pick one of them, and we had this discussion before you came on, which one would be your first priority?
For this team right now?
For this team right now, yes. Moving forward to next year.
I'm a defensive lineman, so I'm if you don't have your line solidified, it's a non-starter. I don't care how fast your receivers are. I don't care, what your linebackers are doing on the other side of the ball. I think you've got to get that line, solidified. It can't just be effect. It needs to be the strong point of the team. That's got to be first and foremost.
Are you including the linebackers or no?
He was asking about offensive line, right?
Yeah. So offensive line, linebackers for this team. What would be your first?
My bad.
Yeah, I would go offensive line. I think after that, then you would address the linebackers, and then the receivers in that order, the ones that you just gave me. But
so if there's a center sitting there, if there's a guard sitting there, and the draft you like.
I don't always agree with just going and getting the best offensive lineman in the draft. You can hit or miss. Like, it has to be a combination, right? So, you got to find the player who's going to fit the system. So for us, like if we're running complicated stuff or like you got to find a guy who not only has the physical ability, but has the mental capacity to get it done, right? So you got to know, like, what is your system? What are you asking these people to do? Is this person going to have to play both left and right? I hate it when they keep taking offensive linemen from one side and moving them to the other and then saying, look what happened. I'm like, guys, you don't understand. These guys are trained at one, literally, when you watch them walk, one side of their body leans to the side that they play on most of the time. These guys are efficient at going one direction, and then you want them to change it up and do the other one over years. And I'm like, it's an unfair thing. Like I know plenty of guys have done it and they can do it, but the majority of guys, like once you get to the NFL, it's not something that can just happen like that.
Zane, you got one last one you want to throw in? Because I know he doesn't want to hang out with us all night, and I got speed round for him too.
Who was within your time with the Giants, right? Mm-hmm. Who was your guy? Who was your guy to lean on? Who was either the mentor, the friend? Here's my tough game, I'm going to you. Here's my great game, I'm going to you. Did you have a person, or was it more like a group for you?
It was a group. I think there at different times there were so many people. Like Corey Webster used to have us down at his house in his basement, and he taught us how to watch film. And that's when I found out that he had, one of the computers from the stadium. He bought one and took it to his house and put it on his thing, so he could just watch the film right there. I said, that's genius. I'm doing that. AP was probably the one who showed me like all the outside football stuff, right? So like, you take care of football, but outside of football, you need to be able to do this, and this, and this is how you train. This is how you organize your life and make sure you're here at this time, whatnot. Obviously Strahan was a big mentor. OC, huge. Tuck. Barry Cofield. So there's too many. Kavika Mitchell and I were real cool. So like when I moved into the linebacker room, he was pivotal. I sat next to him and he helped me. Michael Boley, like a guy who's never credited, but I'm like, this guy came in 1 year, learned our defense, became our Mike, and took us. You know what I mean? Like just walked it, and like he's one of those guys who like maybe he can't sit and explain why he did everything that he did, but he's always going to be in the right spot. So, I mean, Snee on the offensive side, there were too many people who I'm still in touch with right now. You know, who I leaned on during different times.
Love it. All right, real quick. You were 94 because they're asking me in the chat. So you wore 94. Well, you were like a single digit in high school. Were you like a
No, I was 90 in high school. I was 94 at BC. I was 97 when I got to the league, and then I switched to 94.
Okay, so is that basically? I'm assuming that's around William Joseph is wearing your number.
Yeah.
And was there any negotiation there or anything?
Yes, he asked me for like 200 stacks or something like that, and I was like, man, I'll be fine with the 97. I don't hate odd numbers that much.
Because we always I've interviewed probably 30 of your teammates over the years, all good dudes. Like we've gotten really friendly with a bunch of like Dominic Hickson was awesome, Blackburn was awesome. Like,
well, and you just really mentioned we actually just we had Kawika Mitchell on, so he was a big part of that.
Yeah, we had Kawika Mitchell, we had Kurt Warner. So I always ask him the same thing because I'm a numbers guy. Mm-hmm. I always think that like you choose a number when you start playing for a reason. You know what I mean? Like I can remember like in I always wore my birthday, right? Mm-hmm. So in high school I wore 25. When I got to college, the guy had 25, so I had to go to 23. But so like they always have reasons.
It was like my sister and I are real close. I have a brother and I have a sister. My sister and I were the athletes in the family. She wore 49 at one point in high school. So when I got to BC and 90 was taken and 83 was taken, I just reversed her number and went with the 94.
See, there you go. I told you there's always a story. And the best one that always makes me laugh is that Carl Banks, at Michigan State wears 54. He gets to the Giants. It's his first day. He says he's been there like an hour, right? And he goes down to the equipment room, and they're leaning against the doors, Andy Hedden. And Andy says, "What's up, homeboy? I think you're looking for 58. 54." And he goes, 30 large, and it's yours. And he goes, 30 large. He looks at the equipment manager and says, "Reach in the bag. Whatever you pull out, I'll wear." Guy reaches in, pulls out 58, gives it to him. Case closed, So I'm like, wait a minute.
I've seen some high numbers exchanged for.
It's extortion is what that is.
It is. Kickers are the ones who make out. I feel like they have a beat. They know which numbers to take. They know who's coming in next, I guess.
Yeah, I think Kayvon and Graham Gano had a good offseason.
Yeah, and Fiegels and Plaxico too. I think that was a switch there.
Oh, the 17?
Yeah, I think so. Fiegels, right? Wasn't that right, Mathias?
Yeah. Fiegels. I think like something like Fiegels got like a whole new outdoor patio on his house.
Outdoor kitchen or something I heard. Yeah. Nice.
Very cool. All right. This is the last thing I got for you. It's called Speed Round. It's 10 questions, and they're pretty simple answers. And they're like, they're not. They might be one-word answers. So I'm going to give you these 10 Speed Round questions with Mathias Kiwanuka. Thanks for hanging out with the Giants, guys. Question number 1 is, what stadium you hated to play in the most?
Oh, it's Philly. Easy. I loved it and I hated it. I think if we won there more, I would have loved it there more. But no, that was the worst.
The old Veteran Stadium, piece of crap that place was.
I played at BC, so I played Temple there too, so I know about the Vet.
Oh, it's right. Yeah. All right. Favorite post-game meal?
Post-game meal. Oh. Sushi. There was a sushi place in Hoboken, and I always used to like as soon as I got back, that was the first thing I always ordered. Yep.
Love it. These are good. All right. Would you rather have a sack or an interception?
Oof, that's tough. I got paid for sack, so I'm going with the sack.
All right, fair enough. We wouldn't want anybody thinking you were a DB. All right, most intimidating or craziest teammate you ever had? The guy that's completely off the rails.
My God, it's off the rails. I feel like most of them would have said it was me, but I was a wild boy. I tell people, listen, this guy you see off the field, that's not who I was on the field. So people are like, hey, you played against him. You want to go talk to him? I'm like, he probably don't like me a whole lot. I'm going to keep it real. After the game, wasn't nobody coming to like dap me up unless I knew them personally.
All right, that's fine. We'll say it's. I used to say all the time, like watching. I've seen every down you ever played as a Giant. I've had season tickets in my family since '68, and Keith Hamilton was the most intimidating dude I had ever seen. I mean, he was a little before you, but I mean, just defensive tackle. His nickname was the Hammer. You looked at him and you were like, man.
Oh, you were talking about on the field, Brandon Jacobs. When I first got there, I walked in the meeting room. I didn't know who BJ was. And he got up after the first meeting with Tim Lewis. He goes to the running back room. I thought he was sitting with the D lineman. I thought he was going to the D line meeting room. I was like, that's our running back? I was like, where do we go live? I need to get in the weight room.
Throw some plates on there.
That's a big dude right there.
All right, pre-game rituals. Do you have any? And if so, give me one.
I'll be honest with you. Like when I was at BC, I used to get as a captain. I was a 2-time captain, and I used to get so frustrated with the young guys who had all these different things. Oh, I don't have my glove. I'm not going to play well. This and that. And I got to the point where I started doing something different every week, just to be like, look, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that, and it kind of stuck with me. So I was like, there is nothing that I need in life that's going to stop me from playing a good game out there. So I would change up something like every week. There are certain things I always did. I always wrote, certain family members' names on my gloves when I was in college. I think there's pictures of that. I didn't do that so much in the league because they would find me. But no, I made sure from college on. So I remember it was like early in college, and I saw some like older veteran guy, and he blamed the whole reason he had a bad game on like something irrelevant. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, I'm never going to be that guy.
No, that's cool. That's actually you're gonna nothing that's artificial is going to get in your way of having a good day.
Mm-hmm.
All right, number 6. This is going to be a hard one, so I hope this comes out good.
Okay.
You went to BC, right? So you're in Boston. You lived in New Jersey in Hoboken, as you mentioned. Are you ready for this? Yankees or Red Sox?
Oh man!
Come on. Be honest.
Man. I would say, here's the thing. I didn't.
Oh man!
I'll keep it short. I didn't watch baseball growing up, so by the time I got to college, I was in Boston, and the Sox won the World Series, so I got to go with the Sox.
That's okay. That's okay.
He's honest.
I love the answer, but something tells me I don't love the answer.
I know.
I'm like, I really like this guy, and then I'm like,
oh.
All right. I'm just having fun with you, man. Great answer. All right, number 7. You played tight end in high school. Mm-hmm. If you could do it all over again, knowing what you know now with guys like Kelsey and Kittle and some of these guys, if you could do it all over again, would you stick playing defense, or would you go play offense?
No, defense all the way. It's a mentality. I can't wait for my number to be called. I love the fact that anytime I want, I can make up my mind and go make a play.
Love it. Number 8. I've been told by a handful of your teammates over the years that Eli was a big prankster. Any chance that someone played a prank on you? And if so, what was it?
There was a couple. I think rookie year, like O'Hara would do that thing, like they get the little pebbles out of the turf.
Yeah, the little the rubber grommets.
Little rubber grounds or something like that. And he's like, dude, I think you got something, whatever. He's like, open your mouth, let me see, and like threw some stuff in my mouth. I was like, what the hell? I didn't know what was going on. But no, they didn't mess with me like too much like that.
They're like, don't mess with Kiwi. You're not sure. He's a little unhinged.
I think so. Me and Sean got into it. Like it was first training camp. I jumped up in the air on the screen. He hit me in my stomach. And I remember from college, my college coach, Keith Willis, he played for the Steelers for like 9 years. He said, if you're in the air and somebody ever pushes you out, just bring your foot right up underneath their chin and you'll connect and they'll never do it again. So, I'm up in the air. I get punched. Bring my foot up. I hit him underneath his chin. We get into it. We're fighting. We finally separate us. Coughlin pulls me aside. He's like, did you kick him in the face? And I was like, hey, I don't know what happened.
was just a reaction.
I was just reacting, you know. Yeah, but that was
great. Another great story. Love it. All right, what am I on? Number 9. What's the most exciting? A dunk, hole in one, a goal in soccer.
Oof. I mean, I just played Torrey Pines last weekend, so I'm gonna say
I figured you were a golfer, so I threw that in there.
I'm gonna go with a hole in one because I think that's the one that I haven't done of those 3. So I'm waiting for that one. Yeah.
Okay, last one. This is gonna be a hard one, but I think I know the answer because I've a couple of your teammates have looked at me funny, like I can't. Their answer is I can't choose. Let's see. I have a feeling I think you can choose. All right. Which Super Bowl ring do you like better and why?
I only wear one of them. The one I was in.
2011.
2011 in Indianapolis, my hometown. Contributed all the way there. I didn't play much in the game, but I contributed on the way, throughout the playoffs. So for me, that was special. That was the year we definitely had a lot of family changes and all this and that. Good, everything was positive that year. It was, that was a year for us. But it was vindication. I got back on the field and we won a championship, and I'm good now.
Now you're part of history, my friend.
Do you ever wear the 07 one?
No.
Where is it?
The other one I have here, I just did. I take it when I go talk to the kids. The other one's in the bank, in the safety deposit box, but I keep the other one.
All right, before I let you go, because I think it's pretty cool. Tell me a little bit, if you can, and then I'm gonna let you go because I know you don't want to hang out with me all night. Tell me a little bit about the wine company because I did a little research on it. Seems really cool. I mean, you're all over. You're between Napa and you're out in the UK. So if you can, because plus, listen, we've got thousands and thousands of people watch the podcast, and I got plenty of wine drinkers. So tell me a little bit about it, because I'm sure they'll want to get involved if they can.
It is. So it was fun. I will say that I am exiting out of the wine business, unfortunately, but moving on to some bigger and better things, primarily in the mental health space right now, and then also with NFL Africa with OC and whatnot.
Cool.
The wine business came about. We were importing and distributing here in South Florida. We built out 4 brands. Wandering Wines is the parent company, and then we had 3 other brands underneath it. We had 20 something different offerings or varietals in there. It was primarily available online or in restaurants all the way from Key West to Orlando. It was the territory that we covered. But for me, like wine and wine drinking is more about the experience. So the story I tell is about sitting in Napa at Plump Jack or whatever winery, Pager, whatever winery you're at, and you sit there with people and you're not doing shots, you're not pounding beers, you're just having a glass of wine, right? And you get to know people. So it's more about the experience and getting to know everybody at a deeper level. You could sit there with somebody who's a billionaire and then another person who, a couple who's on their honeymoon and scraped together their last dollars to get there. Nobody gives a crap, and you're just sitting there and you're talking and you're enjoying it. So that's what got me to into the wine business. It's all about the human connection. For me, a lot of my life has just been, talking, enjoying, communicating with people, primarily sports fans. You get to play in New York, you meet some of the most interesting people, and Giants fans are everywhere. So I appreciate it. Appreciate the support. Appreciate you guys. And, it's been a great journey.
Well, what's the last 2? Give us the other 2. You got 2 on the back burner. Is it Smile Train, right? And then what's the other one?
Yeah, so I'm on the board of the Smile Train, and we're doing work in conjunction. So I was in Ghana with NFL Africa, and we did some Smile Train work. And then I went to Argentina last year, and we did the Smile Train. So Smile Train fixes cleft palates, cleft lips, or it's something that's eradicated in most of the developed country, but a lot of other places still have the issue. And there's a stigma attached to not being able to bear children that don't have cleft. So my goal, once all this is done and these kids are a little bit bigger, is, I'll be in conjunction with Smile Train and NFL Africa, and we'll be bringing, treatment and opportunities to Uganda, which is where I'm from. And the main story is my grandfather on my dad's side was first prime minister of Uganda, but also my mom's father was educating women in the village back when it was illegal. It was punishable to educate women. So I went back to the school where he taught. Kavika actually came with me. The first trip, we built a well. So we had the first project was we built a well. And since then I've gone back subsequent trips, and we built a entire building on the school, and we're just trying to continuously develop that school. That's where my mom grew up and where my grandfather taught, and it's very near and dear to me. But yeah, so mental health, Smile Train, NFL Africa, Wandering Wines, raising these kids.
Busy man.
You gotta stay busy. You have to enjoy life. Your career is only so long, and what I want anybody who's young who's taking out of this is to understand that even after you get over that hump, even after you get to the pinnacle, there's still a long life to live, and so you have to continuously reinvent yourself and find things that you're interested in and stay grounded. For me, being grounded is with the kids. We went to the dentist today. That's literally all we did. I went to the dentist and hung out with these kids, and now my 8-year-old is smacking me on the head when I'm trying to talk to you guys. You know what I mean?
That's awesome. It's all about the journey, my friend.
It is 100%.
Awesome.
All right, two last questions. Can you tell that OCU Manura guy that we want to have him on the show?
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, if you'll, anytime, we'll, maybe in the off season, love to have you back.
Yep.
Give us some updates on what you're up to.
Yeah.
Because there's always an opportunity to turn someone else on to something that you're doing. We
Okay.
always try really hard to, with all your teammates, to let them, say, hey, look, this is what I'm doing, or this is my cause, this is my charity. And even if one person gets turned on to it, that's worth it for me.
I believe we did the golf outing that Blackburn was doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chase and I have gotten pretty friendly, and we'll DM a little bit, and even Jake Ballard, because my daughter's at Michigan State, he's an Ohio State guy, so we talk some trash, on DM, and Chase is like, hey, I've got this golf outing, that we raised, and I'm like, I'll sponsor it. He's like, you'll sponsor it? I'm like, I'll send you a check. What do you need? I put it out to the listeners. The listeners sent you a bunch of checks.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So again, it's not a lot, but it's like the Giant fans, they get it.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be involved. They love the former players. I've worked with Leonard Marshall. We did all his Ring of Honor shirts this year.
Okay.
So I partnered with Leonard. I went to his house. I had all the Leonard Marshall shirts made. It said 70 on the back. We're always doing stuff. So, if we could ever help you with anything you're doing, please let us know.
Yeah.
Promote anything you have. Just be like, hey, Craig, can you hook us up? Be more than glad to help you. And two, is let us know we can have you back on maybe towards the draft. Maybe we can get some more insight from you, because I'm sure you're connected to the game in some form or fashion. And I'm sure everybody's going to rave on how awesome a guest you were, because you were fantastic. So go enjoy the kids. Actually,
they're probably asleep by now.
Well, listen, if you don't know by now, the lights may be out.
I know,
but this is still what's going on.
No. I got the screen time control. Once the screen time goes up,
you lock them down.
It's dead to them. As soon as the screen time's off, they just drop it wherever it was.
Yeah, they're like, this is trash. This does nothing. I love it. Well, thank you, sir, for hanging out with us. Everyone, thanks for enjoying another episode of the Giants Guys. I have Dane Belton coming on in 2 weeks, which is the Giants, rookie corner. So we're going to have him on in 2 weeks. And of course, our new friend over here is going to talk to OCU Manura for us. Maybe we can get him on. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Appreciate it so much, man. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mathias.
Night, everybody.